Let's get into the word. We're in our series called Follow. We did a series previously called God Is, and we talked through a lot of the characteristics of God. God is faithful, and He's loving, and He's kind, and He's merciful and gracious. All kinds of characteristics. You can go back online and listen to those in the God Is series that we just finished a month or so ago. And then we started this Follow series, which comes out of Ephesians chapter 5, and I don't have that in your notes, but in Ephesians chapter 5, it says, be imitators of God as dear children. So as His children, we need to imitate God. The Amplified Version says, follow God's example. So what we did is we came off of God is, and if we're going to be imitators of God, then we need to be some of those same characteristics. So we talked a lot so far. You can go back and listen to those. But today, we're going to talk about being merciful. God is a merciful God. In Lamentations chapter 3, verse 22 and 23, it says, the faithful love of the Lord never ends. How many are glad about that statement? And His mercies never cease. Great is His faithfulness. His mercies are new. They begin afresh every morning. So listen, here's the mercy that God shows is His mercies, they're fresh every day, new mercies. They don't end. Mercy, you can think of it this way. There's a lot that goes to mercy, but mercy is when you don't receive things that you technically deserve. So if you were to go to, when I was in high school, I got a traffic ticket, and it was a little bit more than a normal traffic ticket. So it required a mandatory court appearance. And so my dad was like, okay, you need to cut your hair, you need to wear a suit, you need to look presentable. And because my hair was longer, I even had a perm in the back. Don't even try to picture it. I had the mullet. It was not pleasant, but it was cool in the day. So I remember going to court, and I thought, this could not end well. And so what happened was I still had to, pay a fine and go to advanced driving school and just spend some time with some other people. But what could have happened didn't. And there was places where I was shown mercy. You ever listen, I've been pulled over by police officers and didn't get a ticket. That's mercy. When you're speeding and you get pulled over and they don't give you a ticket, they give you a warning, that's mercy. Okay, so mercy can come in a lot of different ways. Mercy can be just compassion towards people. Mercy is also forgiving people. All of that has to do with mercy. And we're going to talk about some of that stuff today. But God is a merciful God. Ephesians 2, verses 4 and 5 says, God is so rich in mercy, and He loved us so much, that even though we were dead because of our sins, He gave us life when He raised Christ from the dead. It's only by God's grace that we've been saved. So God's mercy is what it was that reached out, paid a price for us when we didn't deserve it, based on our works, based on us being good enough in our own abilities. That's mercy. That's God's mercy. So because we receive God's mercy, we need to learn how to express that mercy and show mercy to other people. Listen, I played baseball growing up, and played softball, coached a travel softball team, so I like sports. And in softball or baseball, especially growing up, we had what they call a mercy rule. A mercy rule is if you're getting just whooped by this team, and they're way better than you, after they scored 10 runs after 4 innings, the umpire would be like, okay, you have beat them enough. It's over. Have you ever seen those games where it's like 65-2? Like, those aren't even fun to watch, and they're not fun to experience if you're on the losing side especially. So this mercy rule means like, listen, no more. You're not going to punish them anymore. Like, it's over for their sake. We're giving them mercy, and we're going to get them out of this situation. That was the mercy rule for me growing up. So when I was thinking about mercy, I just thought, yeah, it makes sense to just really be merciful. And what does it mean to be merciful to people? And we're going to go through this. There's a verse in Micah chapter 6, verse 8. And he says, "No, people, the Lord has told you what is good." And listen to this. This is what he requires of you. There's 3 things here that God requires of you. The first one is this: do what is right. That's something that is very important in our Christian walk, that we do what's right. The second thing, love mercy. Be merciful, love mercy. Love how you receive it and love to give it. Love mercy and then walk humbly with your God. See, we live in a day where there's just a lot of, we just want justice. We want justice in every way. Social justice, political justice, all this different kind of justice. You know, you do this, you must pay. We're quick to react. We're quick to get back at. We're quick to get revenge. We're quick to whatever in the world we live in. And mercy isn't something you see a lot of in our days. You don't see a lot of true mercy at work. Yet this is one of the things when he says there's 3 things I require. And one of them is that you love mercy. That is so important to you. And here's what we talked about this in other areas, but sometimes if we could really understand that we could see, because right now in the world we live in, and honestly, the church is guilty of this too. We love things a lot more when we receive it, and it's harder for us to give it. It's the same way, just take it practical. If I was to say, I got $500, I just want to give to you. It's easy to receive it. You would love to receive that. But if someone says, hey, could you give that person $500? That's different. God has forgiven you. Yes. Forgive them. No. Be merciful. We love God's mercy, that we experience things that we don't even deserve, that he's not basing how he treats us and how he loves us on our performance. But we're quick to do that with other people. Now, I'm not saying you let people walk all over you, but I am saying that mercy that comes from God, it is very, very deep, heartfelt mercy. It's not just like, okay, I'll look past it once. No, it's mercy at its finest. It's a deep place of mercy. It's a heartfelt mercy. And we're gonna talk about it today. James 2:13. Listen to this. There will be no mercy for those who have not shown mercy to others. That's pretty strong. But if you've been merciful, God will be merciful when he judges you. There's places in Scripture, and we'll look at another one later, but in Matthew, after the Lord's Prayer, right when the Lord's Prayer is over, he says, listen, you need to forgive people. Because if you can't forgive, God can't forgive you. That's a strong verse. What it's revealing is if you can't truly forgive, you've really not received God's forgiveness. Because if you receive God's forgiveness, you should be able to extend it. And we'll walk through a story as we talk about that here in a second. So we really want to make sure that we learn how to be merciful. So what does being merciful look like? First, it looks like being patient with people. How many of you would be honest to say some people get on your nerves? If they're sitting next to you, don't look. Don't look over. Don't look over. But some people, and it's not even that they're doing anything bad, sometimes it's just annoying. Sometimes there's people that just like, oh my goodness. You know, I flew back from California Friday, and there was some people in front, and they were all came separately. And this lady comes down, and the seat between these two people, and she's got the middle seat, and she gets in, and when she gets in, literally she's got a carry-on, she's got a big purse, and she's got bags of food, like snacks, and she's in the middle. So everybody else is kind of like sitting like this, and she's just, Now, there was nothing wrong. Matter of fact, I was like, if she drops something, I'm grabbing it. I'm hungry, But but you could tell that people on the side were getting annoyed because they didn't have enough room, and she, and they're all, one's squished against the window, and the other's kind of leaning in the aisle, and they're trying to get the drink thing down, and they're bumping into them, and it was just, you could tell they were getting a little annoyed. She wasn't doing anything wrong. It was just that she was taking up more room than what they wanted. But being patient means that even if it's not exactly the best thing for you, or that you don't appreciate it or understand it, you just can be patient. You can just be patient and not be so irritated with people. We gotta learn how to walk in patience. Ephesians 4:2 says, "Be humble and gentle, be patient with each other, making allowance for each other's faults because of your love." We have to be able to be patient with one another. Even if someone does do something that we don't agree with, can we still be patient? According to the word, we should be. Look at 1 Thessalonians 5. "Brothers and sisters, we urge you to warn those who are lazy, encourage those who are timid, take tender care of those who are weak." So he's saying this is what for anybody that's lazy, warn them. Anyone that's timid, encourage them. If they're weak, be tender and take care of them. But then he says this, "But with everyone, be patient." Be patient with everyone. And we talked about patience already as a characteristic, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but it is one of these things that we have to be patient with people. That's part of being merciful, is being patient. The second thing, be compassionate. There's several words when it comes to mercy and compassion that they kind of intertwine. That some of the words, when you think about being merciful, some translations even use the word compassion. They interchange. Be compassionate. And the reason I put in your notes, show compassion, is because you can have compassion in your heart and walk right past them. But showing compassion means it moves you to action. It starts with an attitude, but it leads to an action where you actually do something for someone. You help someone who's hurting. You're just compassionate to people. In Luke chapter 10, it says, "One day an expert in religious law stood up to test Jesus by asking him this question: 'Teacher, what should I do to inherit eternal life?' And Jesus says, 'What does the law of Moses say? How do you read it?' The man answered, 'You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your strength, and all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself.' 'Right,' Jesus told him, 'do this, and you will live.' The man wanted to justify his actions, so he asked Jesus, 'And who is my neighbor?' And then Jesus told the story about a Jewish man traveling from Jerusalem down to Jericho. He was attacked by bandits. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him up, left him half dead beside the road. By chance, a priest came along, but when he saw the man lying there, he crossed to the other side of the road and passed him by." Question, was that compassion? Thank you. A temple assistant walked over and looked at him lying there, but he also passed by and went on the other side. Was that compassion? Then a despised Samaritan, a Samaritan who was despised and already looked down on, came along and he saw the man and he felt what? Compassion. You could also put mercy. Going over him, the Samaritan soothed his wounds with olive oil and wine, and he bandaged them. He put the man on his own donkey and took him to an inn where he took care of him. The next day, he handed the innkeeper 2 silver coins, telling him, take care of this man. If his bill runs higher than this, I'll pay you the next time I'm here. Now, which of these three would you say was a neighbor to the man who was attacked by bandits? Jesus asked. The man replied, the one who showed him mercy. Jesus said, yes, now go do the same. That's the example. People walking, listen, sometimes showing mercy, it gets you off your schedule. It actually affects your schedule for you to be merciful sometimes. Where you're going somewhere, you're doing something, and you see someone hurting, and you see someone struggling. And compassion and mercy says, I'll sacrifice to help you. In some way, I'll find a way to help you. Not only did that Samaritan help, but he said, look, I'm helping him. He's cleaned up. He's bandaged up. He's got a place to stay. He's probably going to go do what he was on his way to do anyway. But he says, I'll be back. And whatever, I'll help again. If he needs more, I'll take care of it. I'll pay whatever his bill is. That was merciful. That was merciful. James 2, 15 through 17. Suppose you see a brother or sister who has no food or clothing, and you say, goodbye, have a good day, stay warm, eat well, but then you don't give that person any food or clothing. What good does that do? So you see, faith by itself isn't enough unless it produces good works. It's dead and it's useless. Once again, there's got to be something that this compassion and this mercy will manifest in you expressing it in some way. And God, I'm telling you, every week that we talk about something, I don't know about you, but I have had plenty of opportunities to put it into practice. And I can already tell, as I was studying this week, I can already tell there was places where I've had to be merciful and allow the Lord to help me to see things in a way where I can extend mercy. That's what God's called us to do. Matthew 14, verse 13 and 14. Soon as Jesus heard the news, listen, John the Baptist had just been beheaded, and Jesus just found out. This was someone Jesus was close to, a family, friend. And he finds out he was just beheaded. And it says, as soon as Jesus heard the news, he left in a boat to a remote area to be alone. So it was almost like, hey, I'm heading out, just going to be alone. But the crowds heard where he was headed, and they followed on foot for hours. Jesus saw the huge crowd. Listen, Jesus was going to be alone, and this crowd pursued him. Jesus did not say, could y'all get out of here and give me some time? He didn't say that. You know what he did? He saw the huge crowd, and he stepped from the boat, and he had compassion on them. And compassion was the heart that expressed itself because he then healed their sick. Jesus ministered to people even out of a place where he was going to be alone. He was getting away. And yet he saw this crowd. And there were several times when you see in the life of Jesus where he had compassion. And he saw different than what other people saw. In 2 Corinthians, it says, look, we need to look people different. We need to look at people different than what we normally look at them through a human point of view. We got to look at them. We got to look at them different. We got to see something different. And it talks about that we have the ministry of reconciliation that point people to God. That's what it talks about. So don't see people the same way you always see them. Jesus saw people different. When people saw a crowd, even the disciples, because right after that he feeds the 5,000, and Jesus sees this crowd, and the disciples are like, listen, send these people home. And he said, they're hungry. Let's feed them. See, Jesus was a merciful, merciful person, merciful God. And he had compassion, and it led him to do something. Even when he had other plans, he was compassionate. So it not only is it being patient, but it shows compassion. And then the third thing, what does merciful look like? Looks like forgiving people. Ephesians 4:31 and 32. Get rid of all bitterness, rage, anger, harsh words, slander, as well as all types of behavior. All right, here we go. I'm back. Instead, be kind to each other, tenderhearted, forgiving one another, just as God through Christ has forgiven you. So listen, the first part of this said, get rid of anger and bitterness. You know what anger and bitterness sometimes is a result of? Unforgiveness. We get bitter and we get angry. And this bitterness we hold on to for years and years and years. And you know why it's there? It's not there because it's too hard to overcome. It's there because there's a root that has never been pulled up. And it's unforgiveness. And until you can forgive, it's always going to be there. And it's always going to affect you. Until you can make the decision to do what the Bible says, what he says here, forgiving one another just as Christ forgave you. So when he says forgive one another, we could say that is so difficult. I don't know how to do that. That doesn't make sense. But when you say just like God forgave you, you know what? It's possible because God forgave me that way. And if I receive God's forgiveness, that's how I can extend it because I receive it. If I give you $500, now you can give $500 because you received it. If you receive God's comfort, you can comfort people. If you receive God's love, you can love people. If you receive God's mercy, you can be merciful to people. If you receive God's forgiveness, you can extend that forgiveness. So if you struggle with forgiveness, it's because you really haven't got a revelation on what you received. Otherwise, you would be able to express it and give it. God wants us to be forgiving. Matthew 6:12, when it talks about the Lord's Prayer, forgive us our sins as we've forgiven those who sin against us. In other words, God, forgive me as I forgive those who sin against me. That's an important thing for us to recognize. God, we want you to forgive. And I want to forgive this way. So forgive me as I forgive. And it goes on after that, like I said earlier in verse 14, where it says forgive. If you want God to forgive you, you need to forgive others. Receive God's forgiveness so you can extend it. Because if you don't receive it, you're not going to extend it. So you have to receive it. Matthew 18. This passage is a story of, well, I'll just read the first part. Then Peter came to him and asked, Lord, how often should I forgive someone who sins against me? And then Peter's like, how about this? How about I forgive him 7 times? Pretty good, huh? Yeah, 7. Spiritual man I am. And Jesus like, no, not 7. 70 times 7. In other words, keep forgiving. And keep forgiving. And keep forgiving. Even if it was, some people are like, well, what if he was literally saying 490? Well, if he was, then if you sleep 8 hours a day, that means you're still forgiving someone every 2 minutes, all day. So that's still a lot of forgiveness. But he's talking about, this is basically what he's saying is continue to forgive. Don't even try to put just 7. There's no number to it. You keep forgiving. Because you're forgiving the way God's forgiven you. God has forgiven you way more than 490 times. God keeps forgiving, and you need to keep forgiving. You need to keep forgiving. And then he tells the story about the person who owed a lot of money to the king. And came before the king, and he didn't have the money, and he begged the king. And the king said, you know what? I'm going to clear your debt. You don't owe me anything. And it was a lot of money, millions and millions of dollars in our time. A lot of money. And then this cat goes and he walks over and he goes in. All of a sudden, there's someone who owed him, let's just say, a very small amount. Let's say $100. I don't know how much it was, but for the sake of the story, it was a whole lot less. And the guy didn't have the money. And you know what? He didn't extend forgiveness. He wanted him to pay. He wanted him thrown in jail and to pay. And he didn't know how to extend forgiveness. Now, if you go down to Matthew 18, can you go to like verse 33, 32 or 33? I believe it is. It says, the king called the man in who had forgiven him and said, you evil servant, I forgave you that tremendous debt because you pleaded with me. Shouldn't you have mercy on your fellow servant just as I had mercy on you? That was the question. Shouldn't you do that? If you understood what I did for you, shouldn't you do that? And he didn't. Then the angry king sent the man to prison to be tortured until he paid his entire debt. That's pretty strong. That's what my heavenly Father would do to you if you refuse to forgive your brothers and sisters from your heart. That's how important God's mercy is. And he's not saying, it's not this thing to scare you. It's here to say, look, if you receive mercy, it ought to flow out of you. So you're missing it. If you're not letting any mercy flow out of you, there's a disconnect somewhere. There's a disconnect somewhere. We got to be merciful. And then I'm going to go down here next. How do I become more merciful? Because we know if mercy is being patient, showing compassion, forgiving people, how do I become more merciful? James 3:17 says this. But the wisdom from above, this is what the wisdom is. It's pure. It's peace-loving. It's gentle at all times. It's willing to yield to others. And listen to this. It is talking about wisdom. It is full of mercy. Mercy comes out of wisdom. Where do we get wisdom? Go ahead, ask me that. Where do we get wisdom? Ask me. I'm glad you asked. In James 1, verse 5, it says, if you need wisdom, ask our generous God, and he will give it to you. So if you need wisdom, just ask. Because the wisdom that comes from God is pure, and it's peace-loving, and it's good, and it's full of mercy. So you don't have to produce mercy. You ask for the wisdom of God that is full of mercy. And then mercy flows. And I'm just going to tell you this about mercy. Mercy makes you happy. When you extend mercy, you will be happy. And you will be healthier. Matthew 5:7. Blessed, God blesses those who are merciful. Blessed are the merciful. You know what that means? Blessed means happy, but it's not a happy like, oh, cake. Not that. It is a deep, heartfelt happiness that changes how you live, that changes how you express things, because you're so happy, you're so fulfilled, because you're merciful. And Proverbs 11 in the Amplified, I love this verse. The merciful and generous man benefits his soul. His behavior returns to bless him. But the cruel, callous man does himself harm. You know what benefits your soul? Mercy. Not receiving it, giving it. The man that's full of mercy blesses his soul and is happy. You know what? This week I have become happier because I realized that I wasn't as merciful as I should be. And this week, even in California, some of the times where when I wake up at 3 because I'm on Eastern time. I wake up at 3 in the morning and I'm like, Lord, help me to be merciful. And I read scriptures like that, and I'm like, it does something for my soul to have mercy. Listen, it'll change people. Listen, if you're abrasive, you will never be persuasive. How about that? But if you can walk in mercy and love people and be patient with people and help people and forgive people, people will listen to you and people will follow you. And what else they'll see? They'll see a happy person and they'll think, how are you so happy? I'm happy because I'm merciful. Is the world full of crazy people? Yes, you're in it. You're part of them. We all are. But I thank God that I serve a God that is rich in mercy. And that He gives me mercy. So now I can extend that. And people that hurt me, I'm okay to be merciful. I'm okay to stop being so defensive or trying to have justice. Like, what's right is right, what's wrong is wrong. Like, that doesn't work. If you don't have to win an argument, you have a better chance of winning people to Jesus. If you could just love people and you could just be merciful to people, because that's what the world's missing. Man, one person says something wrong on social media, there's thousands and thousands of comments that, well, let them be wrong. You've been wrong. Let's just be merciful. Let me ask you this. Who wants to be happy? Then be merciful. Who wants to be healthier? Be merciful. Treat people the way God treats you. And you will be happier and you will be healthier. Bow your heads with me.